Howdy folks, it is me again, the Tank Commander, and if you are watching this, then you know that it is the 7-day mark until we go on our cruise. That's right, 7 days everybody. Let's give ourselves a big round of applause there. And with that, it's a very special today, because guess what? I got a lot of bonus information for the tank that we're doing today. As we all know, it is the next episode in the most useless, pathetic, and obsolete tanks of World War II. Well, I gotta tell you, I'm surprised because, once again, ladies and gentlemen, the reigning champion of the votes is RJ Nagel 2000. Because guess what? They got the next vote out. You gotta remember, she gets 2 votes because it's for her and her husband. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is it that we are doing today? Well, here we go. Oh yeah. World of Tankers. You should know this one. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is the Schwer Panzerjäger Jagdtiger, the heavy tank destroyer Jagdtiger. Now what is that? Jagdtiger is German for hunting tiger, and of course if you're going to hear me, I'm going to use the German accent. It is Jagdtiger. This tank, now of course I can't say tank, this is a tank destroyer, because as you know, tanks have turrets, and German tank destroyers really never had turrets, except for late war experimentals. This tank destroyer weighs 71.7 metric tons. You add that to US tons, that's 79 tons. So anybody who wants to get it out of their head that it weighed like 69 tons or something, no, you're incorrect. That's metric tons. Remember, I'm American, so I use US tons, so that's 79 tons. Now you may be thinking, that's a heavy beast. Yeah, it is. It's only 2 tons heavier than the King Tiger. But you gotta remember, Hitler wanted it big. So, what is this thing? This tank destroyer was originally introduced to Hitler in a wooden mock-up form in October of 1943. And this was to be a successor to the Ferdinand, which was the tank destroyer that came before it. It was the Schwer Panzerjäger Ferdinand, after Ferdinand Porsche. And this was also to be like a bigger brother to the so-called Ersatz Panther, which was known as the Hunting Panther, which had the 88mm L-71 gun on it. So what this thing is, this is a tank destroyer built on the King Tiger chassis with a few alterations. And one of those things is this giant gun on it. What is this? This is the same gun that was on the Panzer VIII Maus, the 128mm KWK-44 L55. Yeah, that's a big gun, and a heavy hitting gun. And the secondary armament was one 7.92mm MG-34 general purpose machine gun. As you see right here, the main machine gun was in a ball mount on the hull. Later versions like this, if you look on the back, this one accidentally broke off and I can't find it. It would have an anti-aircraft mount. Now, this thing was powered incredibly by a Maybach HL230 P30 V12 petrol engine producing 690 horsepower. As everybody knows, that's the Maybach 700 horsepower engine that powered the Tiger, Tiger II, Ersatz Panther, and Ersatz Tiger. But unfortunately, the thing was, this thing just weighed so much, because of its super thick armor, it was a very bad gas guzzler. Many of them basically were just abandoned when they ran out of fuel. Now, this engine gave it a top speed of 34 kilometers an hour, or 21 miles an hour. And now that may seem fairly reasonable for a tank this size. Yeah, but the problem was it wasn't really an offensive weapon. Because during the Battle of the Bulge, I'll explain that to you. So as we pull up the armor model from Armor Inspector here, this thing's armor is super thick. On the front, this casemate is 250 millimeters thick. There is no way average tank shells are going to go through that. Maybe if a Super Pershing gets lucky, it'll blow through that, but not a lot of other shells. The front armor here is 150 millimeters thick on the front glacis plate. Now that's 20 millimeters less than the King Tiger, which was 170 millimeters. They had to compress the armor because the thing was, this thing weighed so much. The lower plate here is 100 millimeters thick, so that was one of the weak points, but of course you couldn't really tell because Allied tanks and their crews basically were sent running because of this thing. Its side armor is 80 millimeters thick, and its rear armor is 80 millimeters thick. So, this tank is tank destroyer, is quite an incredible machine. Now, a lot of people don't really know what the service record is of the Jagdtiger. Well, here's a few insights for you. First off, during the Battle of the Bulge, when General Patton was moving north towards Bastogne to relieve them, his Combat Command B went into the town of Chaumont, and they got attacked by a platoon of 4 of these things. One of those shots went through a house and killed the Sherman on the other side.
That's disgusting.
Now, one of the tank commanders, if you're actually watching Greatest Tank Battles, he'll tell you, but what happened was his Sherman started reversing out of the town, so they turned the turret backwards to face it so they could see. Well, what happened? They felt a huge shudder on the back of the tank. Like, it felt like something pushed the tank forwards. Well, that was a Jagdtiger's 128mm shell that was fired at it. When they got back to base, they discovered there was that seam on the back of the turret where the radio was stored. There was sunlight shining through there. That shell actually ricocheted off of that tank by hitting that appendage, but it broke the seam of the weld on the back of the turret. And he said that he still wondered why to this day I survived that hit. That's lucky, because most tanks that got hit by this thing were just completely overwhelmed and just totally knocked out. Because you have to realize, you're getting hit by what is the anti-tank version of the 128mm anti-aircraft gun. And those were used in the Battle of Berlin to fend off the Russians. Now, of course, many people often wonder, well, what were the most prominent units that used this? Well, there were 2 units. First of them was Schwere Panzerjäger Abteilung 505. Now, what that was, I know I kind of said that wrong. That was the 512 Heavy Panzerjäger Battalion, or Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion. The second one was Schwere Panzerjäger Abteilung 653, or Panzerjäger Abteilung 653. Now, the latter of the two, one of the companies was manned by one of the world's most highest-scoring tank aces, Otto Carius. You know, the famous German tank ace, where in his Tigers and Tigers, he knocked out more than 200 Allied tanks. It was in this where he commanded the second company of these giant vehicles. And his tanks did the best they could, basically during the Battle of the Bulge and then the retreat into Germany. Now, in the Ruhr Pocket, that's where they had many actions against the Allies, in which the Allied tanks were just overwhelmed by these things. But unfortunately, in a couple of engagements, they had problems. In one of them, one Jagdtiger got stuck in a shell crater, and it ended up turning its side to, and of course, the friendly Volkssturm, the People's Militia that was situated nearby, they had never seen this thing before. And what did they do? Well, they fired Panzerfaust anti-tank rockets at it.
Oh, that's real nice.
And knocked it out. Many Jagdtigers also fell to mechanical trouble and airstrikes. That was the biggest problem for these things, because remember, anything this large was basically a sitting duck for Allied bombers and fighter bombers. And then in another engagement with Otto Carius's tanks, one Jagdtiger mistakenly turned its side, and an M4A3E8 Sherman, everybody should know that, like the movie Fury, fired a shot into the side and killed all the crew in it. So, what was also interesting is that as they moved further and further back into Germany, they came towards the German city of Heidelberg, and the Schwere Panzerjägerabteilung 653, the 653rd, took up defenses near Heidelberg. And one was near a town that I can't remember pronouncing the name. Two of them were disabled. One of those is now on display at Fort Benning, Georgia. I don't know why the hell it's, again, at an infantry school, because it's armor. That one is Jagdtiger 323. The one that was knocked out next to it, or abandoned, was the Jagdtiger 322. So the rest of them continued to move back. They tried very hard to defend these towns near Heidelberg, but unfortunately, there was nowhere to go. One Jagdtiger, which was Jagdtiger 131, ended up coming out into a intersection in front of the broadside, with its broadside on against Sherman tanks, and another EZ-8 Sherman fired its shots into the side and knocked it out. And the gunner, Unteroffizier Fritz Klein, was killed by machine gun fire when trying to escape. You want to know the crazy part about that? Unteroffizier Fritz Klein is one of my ancestors. You heard that correctly. I had an ancestor who was the gunner of a Jagdtiger, a Schwere Panzerjägerabteilung 653. You heard that correctly. And this right here, this model that's made by Altaia, is representing one of those Jagdtigers that was in the Heidelberg area. And I went to Heidelberg 5 years ago in the summer on a trip to Europe. We passed by Patton's headquarters there, and sure, I can't believe that I was actually in the area where one of my ancestors took his last breath defending the fatherland in this thing. That's incredible. It's funny because my ancestors really hated each other, because I had people in the U.S. Armed Forces, the British Armed Forces, the German Armed Forces, the Polish Armed Forces, the Canadian Armed Forces. It's absolutely incredible. But, so you're probably wondering, what are like the surviving examples of these? Well, there are 3 of them in the world left. As I did say, one of them, which is Jagdtiger 323, which was abandoned in the Heidelberg area and captured by the Germans. And that was brought there. There's visible battle damage on there. The second one, which is a Jagdtiger that was actually captured in one of the proving grounds in Germany by the British. So that one is basically one of the most pristine Jagdtigers you'll ever see. No damage, no sustained collateral or anything. The third one was captured by the Russians when the 653rd heavy God, I can't speak today. Heavy Panzerjägerabteilung moved to Austria, so that one was captured and is now at the Kubinka Tank Museum near Moscow. And it's quite incredible, this machine. I do have to say, I'm now an ardent admirer of this machine, to think that I had an ancestor that was in this vehicle and was a gunner of it. So you're probably wondering, why is this thing, why is it either useless, pathetic, or obsolete? Well, I won't say obsolete because it came out towards the end of the war. I will say it was kind of useless because, according to records, the only thing it was really good at was defensive operations. It was not good on the offensive. It broke down a lot, it ran out of fuel. Many of them, like I said, were abandoned. And I guess I could say that it was a little bit pathetic in a way. It's just, like I said, it was another thing, like with the mouse, it was just Hitler's megalomaniac mind that was the idea for these things, to produce bigger and bigger vehicles with bigger and bigger guns attached to them. And, yeah, I mean, it's sad with this vehicle, but I'm impressed that my ancestor, one of my ancestors, was not only a part of a Jagdtiger battalion, but also one who served under Otto Carius. And at the same time, one of my ancestors was also the adjutant of the 500. Schwere SS Panzerabteilung, the 501st Heavy SS Panzer Battalion, and he was in charge of Michael Wittmann, another famous German panzer ace. So, this ends the video for today, folks, and I hope you enjoyed it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be back tomorrow, and we've got only 7 tanks left. So, everybody, please remember, get out there and vote. Even if you don't follow this video, just please feel free to vote on it, because I want to see somebody be able to beat RJ Nagel 2000. No offense to you. So, I'm also going to post this on Facebook, and I'm also going to send this to people. So remember, folks, make sure you like and subscribe as well, because guess what? This channel is only going to continue growing if you guys show your support for it. And I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. I'm just saying, if you guys want to see more, you guys gotta let me know. So, we'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little special with the Jagdtiger. Auf Wiedersehen!